3, 2, 1. Welcome, Denise.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm great.
Awesome. Welcome to the Grand Rapids Business and Entertainment Podcast. Pleasure to have you on.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Heck yeah, that's awesome. So we're going to jump right into it. By the way, this is Kelly.
Hi, I'm Kelly.
As we all know. Super excited to have you on. Kelly's mentioned a lot about you. First time meeting you, actually. Mm-hmm. So that's really cool. And I've heard a lot of great things about you. We got the privilege of hearing a little snippet about your past.
It was an awesome conversation.
That was a really cool divine appointment for sure.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So you were, I don't know if you want to just brush up a little bit on what we were talking about and yourself so that everybody can get to know you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me to be here. I just love getting to know you and beyond. What you guys are doing is really cool. So my story, I guess, begins when I was in high school. I went on mission trips in our youth group and really got a heart to serve. And needless to say, one mission trip led me to become a camp counselor. So throughout my college years, I was a camp counselor throughout the summer. 2 summers, I was in Asheville, North Carolina, and we did home repair. Mm-hmm. So campers would come, and we would do drywall and roofing and, all the labor things
nobody wants to do.
And so we would work with underprivileged families and help around their house and things. And then I decided that home repair was too much work, so I started looking again for another camp experience and ended up in New York and worked with New York City foster kids for 2 summers. And that is when I decided to go into the field of psychology, because I was like, these kids don't know how awesome they are. I came into camp with all this hope and love and belief in them, and they came to camp feeling low and often experienced trauma, and they just didn't feel safe often. And so camp was a really great place for them to see the stars and run in the grass and play in the lake. And I was there for several summers and ended up in the psychology world. So when I got my first job right outside of school, I was super ready, right? I was like, I'm going to change the world. Yeah, I had these big dreams. And then they really slowly started to die, because when you get into when I got into my job, it was more about policy, paperwork, procedure. It was really less and less about people. I was working with people that didn't want help and a system that couldn't really help them. And I call it my quarter life crisis. I was like, this is not what I want to do for the next 30 years.
How old are you?
At that time, I was 24.
Okay.
Yeah.
So young.
Yeah, and so you learn, right, to go to school and get a job and stay there for 30 years and then retire. And I was like, I don't want to be here for 30 years, but I didn't know what else to do. So I did look for other jobs. I ended up doing counseling at my church and worked with families after work. But I didn't know if the grass was greener, And so I thought, well, at least here I know the paperwork. So I stayed. And I think so many times we have that choice, right? Do we allow our dreams to shrink to fit our current reality? Or do we figure out a way to grow our reality so that to match our dreams?
Great way to put it.
And so at that time, I started really seeking something, and I found network marketing and have been a top leader for the last 13 years. Which led me to work with people that want help. They're ready to grow, they want to work, they're excited to change, and I could guide them in a system that could actually help them.
So cool. And that was kind of nice, probably, because you went from having a system with where you were at, but when I met you through It Works, I saw you up on the stage, and you were this celebrity to me. I was like, oh my gosh, this is impossible. But then your story seemed so real.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, well, impossible and reality kind of collided. And I thought that was what was really cool about you, because you had this system that you were working with, but I always saw you as somebody that kind of was stepping outside the lines, pushing the boundaries, doing something different.
Yeah. Well, and I think that anytime you do something different, you have to grow to match it, So when I first...
comfortable.
It is. And I'm not a business person. I'm not a salesperson. I'm not a marketer. Yeah. I do counseling. So when I first got started learning how to do business, I really tried to be everybody else. I thought I needed to be loud and obnoxious and own the room. And
wait, what personality are you on the Enneagram? or do you know?
Ooh, I'm the action taker. Is that the 3?
I think it's a 3 or a 8.
I think I'm a 3.
Might be. Do you know, or have you studied the other ones more?
I know the colors more
Okay,
than
the disc, or the blue and the red.
blue, red,
Gotcha.
yellow. Yeah.
So you're more of a yellow.
I was a yellow turned red
Gotcha.
because I love people, but I'm competitive. I was an athlete. So like give me a goal and I'll smash it. You know? So in this world I was able to have a personal goal but help people along the way.
Gotcha.
So I had a lot of learning to do, that's
Yeah.
for sure. But what I figured out after, trial and error and doing all the things and trying to be other people was that I really just had to figure out who I was
Right.
and what my gifts were and what my strengths were and own that. And I realized I like to help people grow.
Right.
I'm a counselor at heart. I love good conversations. I want to ask you how you're doing and what's next for you and that kind of thing. And I realized I can do that in this business. So I didn't need to be super good at sales, and I didn't need to figure out business lingo. I just had to
do it.
be
Like
me
we
well.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So the foundation is amazing. I mean, it's a system. You just implement, be yourself. Go.
Yeah, and then I was able to do that with other people. So I'd be able to help you figure out what you love and what you're good at, what comes naturally to you, and help you hone in on your strengths to shine.
That's awesome.
That's fascinating.
Because they don't really encourage you in college to get to know yourself by any means.
Not at
Exactly.
all.
I've so learned that they don't teach us much of anything.
Besides to be in debt.
Data,
Oh my
how to
gosh.
read, maybe.
Exactly. I know. I'm like, they're not teaching me what to do with money or really
Party,
how to
maybe.
make money.
Yeah, party.
They're teaching me to be a good employee.
Yes.
And I was a hard worker. I'm a bloom where I'm planted kind of girl, but I had to figure out how to be the CEO and create and cast my own vision.
Right. That's a rare thing for individuals in college to learn to do.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's
Did
not,
you feel that want in college? Like, a lot of people in college, I think, have that want to create something else or do something else, but then either like their parents hold them back or just the system in society. Did you have this thing in the back of your head that said, I want to do something different and didn't? Or you just didn't know any better than what you were doing?
Good question. My spark was found at camp. That was when I knew that I knew that I knew. Time went by fast. I would volunteer to do it. It was my thing.
And this was at 24?
And this was throughout college, my summers.
Okay.
Yeah, when I was a camp counselor.
Wow.
So when I'm doing the psych stuff, I thought that I was doing what I was supposed to do. So I never thought to go outside of it because I thought this was it until I got my job, and then I realized it was not it at all.
Can I go back to working for free again?
I know. And I think that's oftentimes we don't really know what it really looks like until
Right.
we get there.
No, we don't.
So I know we don't have a whole ton of time. I'd like to brush people up on your successes today and then loop us back a little bit from where you are now, telling a story, and then bring us through that. Because you've accomplished some pretty impressive feats up to this point.
Yeah.
That I've heard at least, and so I'm really curious to know
Yeah.
a little more.
So over the past 10 years, what I think is fun is we were at the top of the company and we stayed there. That's a whole
rare.
other thing to do.
Rare. It's very rare.
Yeah, and so we stayed at the top of our company for over 10 years. We were Black Diamond. There's only 2 in the entire company, and so we were able to duplicate what we experienced throughout our team.
Why don't you tell everybody what that means? Because
Okay.
mine blows me every time I hear it.
I know. So Black Diamond means that you earn an average of $100,000 in commission a month for 6 consecutive months. And it took us, when they first announced this goal, we thought it would be easy. We were like, oh, we've got this in the bag.
You
we
guys
could
are super
totally do this.
competitive. I would be like,
Yeah,
oh my
no
gosh.
way.
It took us 3 years to hit this goal.
Okay.
Wow.
And so throughout those times, I often say if your dream makes you anxious, you either need to change your dream or grow your belief. And because we had already hit the top pin level, this was the only thing left. I had to grow my belief. So throughout those 3 years, I really had to grow my belief. And that honestly is where my book kind of stirred from, was figuring out how to hit this crazy, big, audacious goal, growing myself in the process, teaching our team to do the same. And then I thought, everybody needs to know this information. So I wrote my book right after that, Design Your Dream Life, really about kind of taking you on your own journey of what do I want to do next, and what are my strengths, and what comes naturally to me, what am I good at, and designing a life that you love using quantum physics, epigenetics, and connecting it with scripture. So
it's fascinating.
Yeah,
I
it's
love
so
that
fun.
already, because I come from a history of like where we were talking earlier. Like
Yeah.
I had borderline personality disorder for a period of time in my life,
Uh-huh.
and I had to use what you're talking about in quantum physics, in psychology, and practical psychology, really, to get myself through and out of it. You know, like, and it's not easy at all. So I'm curious to know more about like your findings and how you come across that.
Scripture, like,
Yeah, and
people
scripture
Yeah.
think
too.
so many times that those two don't go hand. They're like, nope. If you do the science, you can't do the scripture. 'cause-
Right, right.
And then
Yeah.
you're still in the gray zone.
Well, and sorry, even with that, I found that there's so much correlation with what scripture says and science. We just don't connect them. People think that they're extremely separated. So I don't know if that's true for you.
Oh my gosh. I was learning all the science stuff, and I thought, Jesus told me that. And I didn't know, like, when he says take your thoughts captive, and the power of the tongue. I mean, he's teaching us these principles.
Fundamental things.
It
of
is.
life.
I know.
We're
And
like,
so
la,
when
la, la, la.
and I felt like the science made it deeper for me. It was not just a plaque on the wall.
Right.
It really was. It was for real. Like, this is, like, we're serious when we say this stuff.
Yeah.
And it really deepened the things that I had grown up learning. And so when when those aha moments came for me, it truly was like, this is powerful and life-changing.
Right.
And so the book, it has my stories throughout, because I want people to relate to me and be able to see, it in real life, in action. But there's also exercises, and I think that's the psychologist in me that's like, we're not just going to talk about
No,
it.
that's great.
Yeah.
We're
let's
going to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's exercises throughout that I learned through the psych world, but also working with my team and doing retreats and helping them to grow. But then I also worked with Jack Canfield and John Maxwell, and I put a lot of that kind of stuff in there too.
Fascinating.
And it's
Were
just
they
so fun.
your did you hit a point where you're like, I gotta level up my mentors, so you reached out to them?
Yeah, so I was listening to a training, and they said, you need to give like 10% back of your income to personal development. And at that time, we were making crazy money, and I thought, that's more than just books and tapes.
Yeah.
I need to go experience something. So I got trained with Jack Canfield and learned how to teach the success principles, which is a lot of what's in my workshops and stuff
cool.
now.
I'm like, all right, I'm sold.
I know, it's so fun.
I want to take this course.
Yeah.
It's so fun.
Oh, seriously. I think we're to a point too. I mean, there's not a lot in Grand Rapids where you can reach
Yeah.
out and level up. And I'm constantly, Chance, like, what do I do? I need
Yeah.
women, and
Yeah.
he needs a man to level up with too.
Yeah.
And it's rare. It's really rare.
It's very rare.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Especially people leading in the field that you're leading in, creating success by being purposeful on it, and creating the mental mind, the mental field of it. I think it's a lot of people just kind of barrel through life and hope that they make the best of it, but
Yeah.
I find that there's so much more, and you can design
Yeah.
kind of like what you're
You can be
preaching,
on purpose.
Right.
My dad read the book because I knew he would not do the exercises, and I was like, he's an accountant, I was like, I just need someone to read it for commas and edit it a little bit. And so he read it in a few days, and he went over it with me, and he goes, Denise, nobody's ever asked me these questions before. And I just let him talk, and it was such a cool experience, because he said in his generation they're taught just to survive,
Right.
but in our generation we're really taught to thrive. And it was really cool to hear
Goosebumps.
his
I think that's also
perspective.
symptomatic of the times that we're living into, because
Yeah.
we don't have to worry about survival necessarily.
Yeah.
And for that generation, that was imperative.
They
that
were raised by people from the Depression,
right.
So they were
They had World
yeah.
War II
Yeah.
to worry about, and those were things that were in the forefront of their minds. So
Yeah.
for sure,
He said this could be called dream life self-discovery.
Ooh.
And I was like,
Number 2.
thanks, Dad. I know.
Thanks,
Good
Dad.
idea.
I like that. Did he end up doing the exercises?
He's done some of them.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Because I think that can be scary, but for me, I love it because
Right.
I'm the person that leaves a conference hyped up.
Yeah.
We were just talking about this yesterday, the difference between a Tony Robbins conference and something else. I'm like, I've been blessed with a lot of, the company's ability to bring in cool people, and we get to experience the energy. But Tony Robbins seems like I've never experienced it. He's gone. But when you leave, it's like you implement. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. You're just in it.
Because it's not you. Because it's immersive. Mm-hmm. You're doing the work there, so
Right.
you leave shifted.
Right.
Yeah, it's
Right.
powerful.
The turning point, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, I love that because I'll leave hyped and then I'll drop off the deep end. But if like there's a workbook and I can do a little bit work, I think that's a huge bonus for anybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's amazing. So tell us a little bit about your book, and then since we're already on the topic, I'm curious to know, like, you don't have to tell everything, of course, but like the meat of it. I want to know what's entailed in some of your findings, the scientific part, and then the scripture part.
Yeah. So I teach the Dream Life Pathway, which is head, heart, feet.
Okay.
So the head space is all about mindset and clarity, really, because if you don't know what you want, you're not going to get it. Or maybe I should say it the other way. If you don't know what you want, you will always get that. Or you don't know, nothing.
Whatever.
So clarity and really figuring out who am I and what do I want, and retraining your brain. And that's where I teach a lot from Dr. Leaf. Mm-hmm. Dr. Caroline Leaf is a cognitive brain neuroscientist, and she has been studying the brains for 30 some years, and she teaches the fact that you can rewire your brain. So if you think of your thought patterns, 90% of our day is habitual. So it's kind of like a gutter, when you're bowling and the ball goes in the gutter. Our thoughts our brain takes the shortest pathway.
Right.
And so we're on autopilot most of the day. And so what Dr. Caroline Leaf teaches is how to retrain your brain to create new neural pathways, to create new thoughts that become the new habits. Because at the end of the day, thought patterns can be helpful if they're the right ones. Right. So we want to be intentional on what our current thought habits are, and then be intentional on how we can kind of switch that. So that way they are more positive and really more of what we want. Right. And like we were talking about earlier, the way that you think really does cloud and impact the world that you see around you. It's kind of like if you were to wear blue sunglasses and everything's blue, and then you put on pink sunglasses and everything's pink. Yeah. So the way that you think impacts your reticular activating system, which is your brain's filter, which allows you to see things in the world. So, for example, if you've ever been pregnant, all of a sudden you start seeing pregnant people everywhere. Right? And they're
and folks, if you think this is crazy talk, Google this and find credible sources, because this is real.
It's really,
this is real.
Try it yourself. Yeah, it's so funny. It's a game you can play because you start thinking of something and then you start noticing it. Mm-hmm. Another example is if you go car shopping. And then all of a sudden, you're test driving a Jeep, and then you see Jeeps everywhere.
Dang it, that was the only one.
My son said this yesterday. He goes, I was wearing a shirt that said "Mom Mode" on it, and he goes, "Mom, is that the only shirt you wear?" And I said, "No, obviously, I wear different shirts every day." And he said, "I only notice when you wear that shirt."
Interesting.
Why? Because it says "mom" on it. He knows that word. Yeah.
Right.
And I just think I want to be I want to influence what my reticular activating system shows me.
Right.
So when I retrain my brain and I focus on what I want, I trigger what my brain shows me. So I'm very intentional on asking for what I want and then expecting to see it. So that's all in the brain.
Yeah,
that's in the head stuff. And then we go to heart, which is passion and purpose, because what you want needs to be emotionally connected. It's kind of like in my workshops, I'll show a video of Care Bear Stare. Do you guys remember that?
Care
That's
Bears,
old
yes, I
Yeah,
do.
it's like
We
It's like
Care Bears, we care.
love, and then they kill the bad guy.
Wow. I totally forgot about that.
And
Care
it's
Bears.
yes, and it's kind of like our emotions are emoting out into the world, right? And so when your emotions are what you want and you're like excited about it, then we Care Bears stare it, and then we have to go to feet, which is action, and because really we have to. The how can only show up when we're moving our feet.
Right. Well, back up a little bit too, because emotions puts the drive into whatever thoughts you are thinking,
Yeah,
right?
it's like the ignition, like the
It's
igniter.
the juice of life,
Yeah.
your emotions. And so I think I'm actually reading High Performance Habits by Brendon Burchard, which is talking about a lot of this, which he says, think about your day and then what do you want to accomplish for the day, but more importantly, how do you want to feel about the day and then that thing you're doing?
Yeah.
And so he says most people just focus on the emotions that are rattling their mind, and that can be anything. I mean, think about the wind tossing back and forth. That's your emotions.
Yeah.
Versus thinking about the thing you want and focusing on that and driving that home,
Yeah. No, it's so true because part of my Black Diamond story, and this makes me so excited, is we hit the top of our company during the most personal, challenging time in my life.
Wow.
Really?
You know what I mean? Like,
Sounds familiar.
jeez.
Right?
And I created what I called my war room. After I saw the movie War Room, and then I created my own war room, and it was just in our extra bedroom. It was like a walk-in closet, so I put a chair, and they had a shelf, so I could just write, and I taped stuff to the walls. And instead of thinking, praying, talking about what was currently my reality, I talked about, thank God for all the things that I wanted to see shifted in my life. And the change over that year was remarkable. But I think it's so easy to stay where we are.
Right.
How long did it take you to see that notice? Because I think we get impatient.
Yeah.
So we're
we
like,
do.
I'm like, thank you, God, for blah, 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 that future thing. And then you're like, it's been 3 months.
Yeah.
So how long did it take? And then what was that turning point for you to be like, all right, just got to stick it out?
Well, I remember being in there like wholeheartedly a year. But what I learned throughout that year was what I call it gratitude and vision. It was like I love like figuring out how to love where I am despite ups and downs and know where I'm going or be excited about where I'm going.
Right.
Because I think oftentimes we're so focused on the future that then we're like restless here and we're not going to be happy until. So throughout that year, not only was I casting vision, but I was really learning about myself and healing myself. And then regardless of outside circumstances, I could be okay. Right. So I married the two, gratitude and vision. Like I can love where I am and still be excited about what's coming.
And that's biblical too right there.
Yeah.
I mean, I forget what verse, but it says, enter the courts of heaven with thanksgiving and praise.
Yeah.
It's sort of that.
Yeah. That's
right?
good. I like that. Yeah.
You whips out Bible verses sometimes.
I know. I'm like, ooh, I haven't heard that one.
Sometimes I check and I'm like, are you sure? I'm like, dang, he's right.
I'm an amateur, but I've got history of biblical foundation bedded into my mind. So
yeah, that's powerful.
Got my parents to thank for,
Right. You're what you said about envisioning and thanking God for something already and seeing what you want and then going for it. That's almost, like we talked about, it's almost like anti-biblical because you thank God for where you're at. That's very common. And then you just say, this hardship is okay. But to set your vision on something else is very crazy to somebody, usually in the church. Did anybody ever say anything like, what are you doing? Like, you're full of juju over there.
Yeah, good question. Yeah. Okay, so this is what I learned throughout my own pivots, transitions, hardships, really. What I was taught to do was to say, all right, God, please bring me this change. Tell me what to do. Show me what job I should do next.
Yep.
And wait.
Yep.
And there's a sense of like we have to be patient in the process, of course.
Of course.
But T.D. Jakes said this way, and I loved it. He goes, God gives us a tree, and then we say, please, God, bring me a chair. I want a chair. Bring me a chair. And God goes, there's a tree right there.
Right.
Build your own chair. So what I learned in my war room was that I did have to take action. You know, I had to do something so the how could show up in my life. But I know I was taught that God will tell me and to wait. And that kind of attitude of having an external answer rather than knowing I can settle in and listen to myself, and God will share, like, I know my answers to my own questions, and then trusting that. So I had to learn that. But I do think it is a cultural thing where we're sometimes taught.
I think it's I don't know if it's a Western Michigan thing or like
I know.
a Christian, evangelical Christian thing.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure, but it does resonate. I mean, I was born and raised in New York City. My parents are Dominican, and they brought that over from Dominican Republic. And in New York, I remember practicing that same sort of belief system in the Christian world. And then as I got older, I thought, this doesn't sound right because things don't manifest as they should.
Yeah.
Right? Romans 8:28, I think it says, for those, what does it say? It's like, for those who love God, all things work for the glory of God. Something like that. And I thought, yeah, that's true, but things don't work out right now.
Like, this is not, my mansion is not here yet.
Yeah, or in Matthew it says, seek ye the kingdom of God and all things shall be added. I'm like, nothing's being added into my life.
Well, and then there's the seeking. Like, that's an action.
That's an action.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think we're just often taught, like, if it's God's will. And I'm like,
the will's here now.
if the dream is in your heart, like, that's all you need. Like, so I had to learn that because I certainly did feel like there was this external answer that would tell me all the answers. But then I started journaling and meditating and being quiet, and I realized that I already had everything
The
I
answers
needed.
are within.
Exactly, absolutely.
Yeah.
So
I think that's such a small shift, but it's so big at the same time.
Yeah, and that's why my book combines both.
Wow.
Because the
Actually,
reality
I'm
is,
excited to read your book.
I know, I'm excited. We should read it together, actually.
Yeah,
It's
I think
fun.
Do you have it on audio?
I do. I
Really?
do.
Shoo.
On audio, no, I don't.
Okay.
But I could.
No problem. I'll read
I
it.
don't because they're exercises you have to write down. So I'm like,
True.
do I say get out a piece of paper?
That's true. No, it's good.
But I was like, I really felt that combining them both was important to teach the depth of really what the Bible already teaches, because I know living in West Michigan and growing up in the church, I wasn't taught this stuff, and I felt like we're missing out on a whole piece of the puzzle.
We are.
No, absolutely. I think you're onto something absolutely amazing, and I commend you for that, because I don't think anybody's doing that here, and it's a message that people need to hear.
Yeah.
My mom, actually, in the Latino community, for women particularly, she's using a lot of that in the church, not as deep in the scientific aspect, but at least somewhat, and she's helping shift some of the ideas and the paradigms of the thinking of the Latinos that only speak Spanish, when it comes to that sort of thinking, because she sees the pain. Like, we see the pain because we came from that.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to see that happening.
It's powerful when those shifts are made. Your whole world changes.
Absolutely.
Like you said earlier, okay, now everybody's got to know.
I know. It is fun.
So you're doing some events, correct? And are these, so fill us in on the events first of all, and then are they revolved around the book, or you're doing more of like a seminar coaching? How do they work?
So I did my first live event a year ago, and it's called Dream Space. And in Dream Space, the exercises in the book and in the event there's some that overlap, but the event is, of course, a bit expanded.
Okay.
Like meditations or like life purpose stuff, and just things that we can't necessarily put in a book.
Right.
And in Dream Space, I do Spark, Release, and Dream. So Spark is all about who am I, and that's where we really tap into who am I, life purpose and what do I love and joys and things. And then we have a whole session on Release. This is the most powerful part. But if I marketed it as a forgiveness session, no one would come.
Right.
Seriously.
So you call it release.
Yeah,
Release.
so it's Release, and we write letters to yourself and to someone else, and we really learn about the power of forgiveness, and we do it right there. So I've had people tell me that a 10-year grudge was lifted. I mean, it's an onion layer. I don't expect all things to be
For sure, right.
healed in
At
one
least to
session,
start.
but it's an onion layer, and it's so powerful. And then the last session is dream, and this is where it's like, all right, what's next? And this is where we really get clear, and we create an action plan, because we have to rearrange your calendar, or else your new goal won't happen. So,
Right.
and I am now I do events like that.
Okay.
But I just recently did one, and a mom brought her 17-year-old daughter. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Because whenever I do events, people will say, oh, I wish my kids were here. Or how, do you ever do one for teens? Because, and I just haven't. But she brought her daughter, and they did the exercises together, because you have a partner and you're reflecting and you're, sharing your answers and things. And they cried. They had breakthroughs themselves, just communication. It deepened their relationship. They went home and told their whole family. And I was confirmed. I think, again, like, you have these ideas and then the how shows up, So I was confirmed that this thought that I had needed to happen. So I'm working on a teen journal. So it's called the Dream Life Teen Journal.
So
and
cool.
and that's a journal where it's gratitude games, and that's where the teaching happens. But there's places for writing and meditation and action and all these things. And then I'm going to do a mom-daughter event to launch it in May.
So cool.
So the mom-daughter event is, you're going to be partners with your daughter. So it's 15 and up is what it's geared towards, just for squirreliness.
Right.
Yeah.
But I did have some adults tell me they're going to come and bring their mom.
Wow.
Very cool.
So I thought
So
that
there
was
you
really
go.
special
Right.
too.
That would be
So,
powerful.
I hope it gets
actually.
packed out.
yeah, I know. I'm
That's
really
so cool.
excited. I think the more that I dive into this kind of, niche or this population, the more I'm excited to teach it to them specifically, but also even their moms. And together, the experience that they have is going to create just memories for a lifetime, because we end the event. This is so fun. We end the event with what we're calling it the Dream Soiree.
Okay.
And it's you pretend like it's 5 years from now.
Okay.
So we're going to take a break, and then they'll come back, and we're going to say, I haven't seen you in so long. What have you been up to? And they're going to bring props, and they're going to probably wear their like college sweatshirts, and they're going to, talk about they graduated high school and they got into their favorite college, or they got this track scholarship they always wanted, or, they're going to talk as if it's already happened.
So powerful.
And
For
so even that experience in
Yeah.
itself, with the photo booth and their parents like doing it together, I feel like is going to be a really cool memory.
And where are you holding these events?
This one on Grand Rapids, 20th Street.
Okay.
Or in
so
Grand
here
Rapids,
in
yeah.
Grand Rapids.
Yeah.
Are you going to different high schools to kind of promote and then coming back to do like a larger event?
Yeah, so I went to Hudsonville, and
Okay.
I went and talked to them about the journal, and just had them help me create it. So my friend's the English teacher there, and so I said, all right, what are current teenage struggles?
Yeah.
And what are current solutions, and they helped just craft the gratitude games and some of the I'm like, should we say meditation? Should we say mindfulness? What would connect with you? That kind of thing.
So different now.
Yeah, and so I interviewed a couple other teenagers as well, but now that I've got the date and the location all figured out, I'm
Right.
gonna go to counseling centers and YMCA and churches and schools and just let them know what's happening.
Absolutely
and I'm super
fascinating.
excited.
I feel like you're in the stage of life where you're putting out your most impactful work.
Yeah, thank
And you're going to absolutely you're going to do amazing work, I can tell.
Which, how old are you, if you don't mind us asking?
you. 38.
Wow.
So you're
okay.
38 and you're just starting, I feel like.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
even though you've already accomplished so much, but
Thank you, because I'm doing it scared.
Yeah, and that's-
I'm still like,
Right.
are people gonna come? Are they gonna think it's stupid? Are they gonna, But it's that burning in your soul where you're like, I have to do it, and if I don't, my soul will die.
Right, absolutely.
And so you can see how excited I get. That's just kind of how I know I have to say yes, even
to
if
do it.
nobody
You
shows
gotta
up.
do it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That is so awesome. What, we'll wrap it up here. What impact do you wish to leave in the community that you're serving here in the next 10, 20 years?
I feel like my job is not to light a fire under you. My job is to light a fire within you. And so I want to help turn people on to their power. Like, we all have these innate gifts and excitements and passions, and we don't often take them seriously. So I love helping people be like, no, do you know how awesome you are?
Right.
And help them light up from the inside.
I don't think we know enough. I really
we
don't.
don't.
I really don't.
We don't.
We
We're
have
so beaten down, aren't we?
Yeah.
So much.
Well, you have all of this, and what your brain can do, first and foremost,
Yeah.
in the course of 10 years, people don't understand
Yeah.
at all.
The compound effect. You can be in a different place in a year, 3 years, 5 years if you want to.
Just take
Or
some
you can
work.
stay the same,
Right.
right?
Sit back.
So, yeah.
Sit back and stay the same, or do some work.
So you want to light a fire within people.
I want to light a fire within people,
Like
absolutely.
that.
Awesome.
Like that a lot.
And if you had any encouraging words for somebody watching that's like, you know what, I'm in a really low place right now, nothing can help me, what would you say to that person?
Well,
It's
I
coming.
know. Well, and I think we've all had that spot before. We've all been in a spot like that before, where we feel like I might as well just give up, or is anything ever going to work for me? And so just know you're not alone. It's part of the process. When I have gone through those moments myself, what I've learned is that they don't, not to take them so seriously, in a sense. Like, it's just a part of the game. There is so much available to us, but we cannot create when our emotions are 3 steps behind. So often we do have to clean up some of those hurts, heal from any of the traumas, really kind of like free ourselves with that forgiveness so we can move forward. So it may be some work for sure, but it's worth it, and you are worth it, and take action every single day. We often say, emotion, it means movement, like move, get up, go do something, and your emotion will follow. So sometimes you are going to do things even if you don't feel like it, and your emotion will catch up to you.
That's such a great piece of advice. I love it. I love it.
Good little gold nugget right there.
Yeah. Wow. It has been an absolute pleasure having you on for the short amount of time, but I feel like it was extremely impactful. I'm sure we could talk for hours on end here.
I know, this is such a fun topic.
Maybe we'll do a part 2 of anything. Well, thank you so much for coming over and chatting with us and, sharing your story with everybody. Where can people find you?
DeniseWalsh.com, and I'm on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, I guess.
TikTok. Hey, there we go. That's a new one.
And
find
the
you?
Denise Walsh.
Denise Walsh.
The Denise Walsh.
DeniseWalsh.com.
Okay.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Until next time, Grand Rapids and Business Entertainment. Take care,
you.
guys.